excited. I'm doing this in response to a friend who told me a story about getting a tarot card reading and the hangman coming out. And the person not really knowing how to respond to that. There's a lot of things I want to say about it. First of all cards are neutral. In fact, I made another video, which I might put up at some point, about the law of neutrality and how it applies to tarot card readings. But what I want to offer is a much deeper, richer encounter with the Hanged Man. So I'm going to hold up, I just randomly pulled a couple of Hangman cards so that you can see them, so you can get your own feel for what's going on in this card. And I think like the traditional meanings, did I pull out? I don't know if I put that one up already. I just randomly pulled them. And what the hangman really represents is Woden. So what we're going to talk about is Woden, self-sacrifice, the descent into madness to reach enlightenment. I know. You're already freaking out, going, that's so cool. I can hear you. Okay, I can't, but whatever. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about who the god of the ravens is. So Woden is the older name for Odin. And while there's a tendency to see Odin as the All-Father, but in a very Christian sense, that's not who he is. Christianity is not a Northern European religion. It's just not. It's very, the North gods and the European gods are very, very different than the Abrahamic trilogy, which is based on Yahuwah. That's not who he is. Who he is he's the wanderer, he's the stranger, and he's the warrior. And what he does is he sacrifices himself for enlightenment. In fact, I know I have a deck, and I've seen it recently, but I don't know which one it is. I have a lot of decks. Oops. I know I've seen it recently where he has one eye, and what he does is he plucks out his own eye for knowledge. And this is the interesting part of the European gods, because they're self-sacrificing, they're flawed. And what he does is he sacrifices himself to himself so that he can find enlightenment. And it's a moment of transcendence as he's dying on the cross. And it's not the Christian cross, it is the European cross. It is the tree of life. He sacrifices himself so that he can go into the underland, into the underworld, and be transcended by what he witnesses there. Because when you go through that journey, we call it in more modern times the dark night of the soul. When you go through that madness and you let go of your identity and all that you know and all that you are attached to, you can only come out on the other side as enlightenment. And that's what he's offering. The other interesting thing are his ravens. And I didn't do this on purpose, actually. I was actually looking for, I didn't even notice these until I started recording. But Odin is actually given two ravens, Hugin and Mugen, thought and memory. He's given them to them by the goddess of hell, which is her name, which is where that term comes from. She's actually a wise beautiful being who is given compassion, who has compassion and the trust of Odin to rule the underworld and resurrect the dead. And she plays very heavily in um, the myth of Balder, who is the most beloved of the gods. A little bit of a different take from Baldur's Gate, but he's the most beloved of the gods, and she is tricked at the last moment, so she is unable to resurrect him. But where was I going with that story? I think what I was saying was, so in Norse mythology, and I am not a Norse mythology expert by any stretch of the imagination. Don't think that. Like, this is just what I remember. Um, but Odin would choose which warriors would fall and which would remain, and they would be sacrificed to the ravens, to thought and memory. And when you get that as a symbology deep in your being of what that means, that's fucking brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. So when you see the hangman, you're seeing a wanderer, a journeyer who is journeying in to the innermost. Everything's come to suspension because it's 9 days, 9 days that he hangs on the sorry, people are talking outside. 9 days that he hangs on the tree of life, Igua, or not Igua, Igua, I don't even know what that is. Igriel, he hangs there suspended for 9 days as he makes this transcendence. And sometimes you need to sacrifice yourself. You need to sacrifice your identity because it is your identity that is holding you back. It is your identity that is keeping you locked in a prison that you cannot transform from. And the only way to transform is sometimes to let it all go, so that you can go through the darkness and come out in the light. And that's what the hangman represents. Love you, my dear friend.